The new season has begun, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to the first day of November and the first day of SnowTALK, the new season as we head into the weeks ahead. Now, if you're new to watching the blog here at Wave, just kind of a reminder of how things work with SnowTALK. No, there's no snow that is in the outlook right now. All right, so don't panic on that. This is really my chance. I always do this on the first day of November, right after the winter forecast. I have a moment to explain how this is going to work because SnowTALK will be the main title of the blog, even if there is no snow in the forecast. SnowTALK will still be the title of it because this is the place that I want for you guys to have to go, for you snow lovers out there, especially if you just want to know where we're at on the winter setup and how things evolve in the coming weeks ahead. So I want this to be the headquarters for you guys, for all you bots fans. Again, if you're new for bots, hashtag bots, BOTS for bringing on the snow. You guys created that community here in 2010, and it's still quite strong. In fact, I see that hashtag even across the country now that is being used. So you guys have really created something here. So I want to hold on to that with you all. And as always here on SnowTALK, as you're about to see, we're going to look at any chances down the road. And of course, as you guys know, there's not going to be much here. And then I will talk about some of the longer term stuff coming up in a few moments. The winter forecast is up and running right now on the Wave weather app and on wave3.com. The video is there. I can't go into everything I wanted to discuss. I could talk for 3 hours about a winter outlook and all the different elements that are at play. First off, that would probably bore some of you, maybe not all of you, but some of you. And secondly, it's a lot of noise. Winter forecasting is it's unique. It's the most popular thing, I believe, in the country at this time of the year and maybe any time of the year is a winter forecast from TV stations and the weather service offices, and it's very popular because people love this stuff. Even though I get picked on a lot, everyone tells me, Brian, you love snow so much, move to Michigan, move to Wisconsin. But as I always say, it's different there. They're used to snow when it takes place. But here we don't get snow often, but when we do get a snow event, there's something in the air about it. The energy, the excitement, the tracking of it. It's different. And I grew up here, so that is in my blood. So no, I'm not going to move to Wisconsin or Michigan. I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to talk about it always, even if it's nothing going on there. Okay, so there you go. That's my dissertation about the blog, so you guys understand. I'm not going to say this every time, but I want to make sure everyone understands how SnowTALK will be working. All right, so let's get into where we're at. As far as any upcoming snow chances, well, I think you got, whoops, sorry about that. I think you guys are aware that obviously we don't have any to track. But if we did, they would appear right here on the board and we would break them down. All right, enough of that. Let's get into what we do have ahead of us before I get into a bit more of the longer term setup. And we had that front that came through yesterday, of course, for Halloween. Gave us more of the wind earlier in the day. The wind tapered down once we have more of a steady light rain setup in the afternoon that calmed down the wind field. So nothing too dramatic there, but it was the first decent system that we've had since Helene came through the area with all that rain during Louder Than Life. You guys remember that. All right, and rainfall amounts generally were, I would say, about a quarter to maybe up to a half inch. We see those little blots there in central Kentucky of darker green, a little closer to half inch. But it was very, very spotty because there were a couple pockets of moderate rain mixed in with the light rain. So it wasn't uniform on that. But everyone got at least something out of this. So that's good. But would it really change anything when it comes to droughts? Not necessarily, because the drought index, it updated. Now, I love the little patch of you're okay right here in the Bowling Green and Grayson County. Grayson County and parts of Hart County, you guys are shining right now. The rest of us, I mean, this is not a serious drought scenario. It's only a low end. And you may be thinking, wait a minute, we went a whole month without rain. How could it only just be the level 1 of a drought status? Well, that's because October is the driest month of the year for us. So it really wasn't that unusual in that sense that it would cause the drought index to spike. Now, if it was July and we had that, or August and we had that long stretch of dry weather like that, yes, this would be more than likely a severe drought status. But it's the dry season, so we don't have a huge factor on that idea. And I do think we're going to balance that out very much. I think this is all going to be erased. Just like last year, really. We had a drought. We erased it in the wintertime. I think we'll do the same again for this year. Okay, so today the front is still impacting our southern counties. You guys down around Campbellsville, Greensburg, and as you head down to about Columbia. Holding on to the clouds. Front still lingering there. You could still get maybe a drop or two, but really it's dry in most areas. I'm not worried about that. And you're going to have that dry air punch in, so the front will be past you already. Chilly air did settle in this morning. Several 30s and 40s were found across Indiana, northern Kentucky. So it was a chilly setup. And today will be a beautiful day in the 60s for highs, but nothing too dramatic really coming our way for the weekend. The long range is where things get a little more messy. So as you see here, we got a little bit of a warm front scenario trying to develop. You see just a hint of it now into areas of Dallas. We will see that expand a bit more as we get into the upcoming weekend. More on that in just a second. All right, let's get into the outlook, though, for the weekend, and then I'll take you into next week because we got election day next week we need to talk about. Rest of today, as I mentioned, fine. Blue sky, temperatures in the 60s, great. Chilly tonight. Now, tomorrow looks to be another gorgeous setup, and tomorrow will be the pick, really, the weekend in terms of sky condition and really just how it feels outside, right around 70 for high. Not too shabby. Now, a warm front will then move in, but this will be later Saturday night, and more than likely when everyone's going to bed, or if we're going to be up at 2 a.m. to set the clocks back, which I'm not sure who really gets up at 2 a.m. to do that. Most of us do that before we go to bed, and most of us don't have to do that because technology has gotten so good now that most everything in your house and certainly your phone is going to update automatically. Even our cars now take care of that. That was the biggest issue, right? A lot of us wouldn't even change the clock in the car for 6 months because of that. I never did. I just did the math to add and subtract the hour, which was a lot of work for no reason. Okay, so the warm front will be coming in later tomorrow night into early on Sunday. There will be a bit of rain with that will try to break out. This is what we call warm air advection rain. Pretty common to see that. It's not overly heavy usually, but you can get some showers that will be moving in early on Sunday. Once we get into Sunday afternoon, there's still a chance to get a shower. Most of that activity, if there's going to be anything at all, the zone to watch is going to be roughly through Evansville. I mean, the river, really, all the way through Ohio. This zone here, anything north of that line, a little more at risk for showers that will break out and kind of hug our viewing area on the northern side. I don't see much happening right now for Louisville and Kentucky. That could change if that belt slides a little more south and east, but it's nothing major. Just want to at least mention that. And again, it'll be a bit more on the cloudier side too on Sunday, but warm. We may get a little closer to 80 for a high on Sunday, even with a mostly cloudy sky, just because of the warm flow that establishes. And that warm flow will continue to hold on to the area all the way into Monday. In fact, Monday will be warm, windy, temperatures around 80 degrees, maybe a touch higher. We could be talking about records. We'll be watching that. We get into really, though, Tuesday, election day. And this is where the signal is fairly strong for another severe weather setup, a little more east this time compared to the last one. So it looks like it's going to be Texas into Arkansas and Missouri. We'll see a severe threat that will break out on election day. So that'll be the weather drama for that day will be there. We will likely face a very windy setup once again. But the question will be, as we witnessed yesterday, it's all about the balance of a partly cloudy sky. We clouded up fairly quick, so that really does cut down the wind too when you cloud up. So the question will be, are we going to be partly sunny or are we going to cloud over fast on Tuesday? If we cloud over quickly, then the wind will not be as much of a factor. We need to look at this a little more if we decide anything on alert day status for this, but just want to give you guys a heads up that it looks warm and breezy. But right now, the thunderstorm setup, as far as how timing will play out for us, if it breaks out into Missouri, into Arkansas and Texas, we will get the weaker version of that, but that will likely be more so Tuesday night. And I'm hoping right now that it wouldn't arrive until after the polls close, so we don't have to worry about the weather being a factor at all for everyone trying to get out and vote on Tuesday. But we will be monitoring to see how that speed is. Typically, it is slower than the data points to, but we'll see. This is the euro, by the way. Now, once we get past election day, and I'm talking about immediately past it, Wednesday after, we get into a much more complex scenario. And this is one of those setups that I love to monitor and track because I think it's fascinating. And I'm talking about a tropical system developing in the Gulf. At the same time, we have a low that moves in across the lower 48. Do they talk to each other and shake hands, or do they go into their separate rooms? That's what we need to watch as we head into the end of next week, especially the next tropical system, which I didn't bring up the map on that. I apologize, but it's 70% chance of developing here for the weekend. Next name on the list is Patty. And there's still some questions on whether or not it's going to get into the Gulf and head into Florida, or will it get into the Gulf and head into Mexico and southern Texas, or will it just kind of linger and then dissipate? All three scenarios are showing up in the data right now. But what I think is fascinating is that as we head into next week, there is a chance that as this wave tries to move in from the north, could they interact at all? Because the jet stream is going to basically leave us alone at the end of next week. It's going to begin to head out, and that will allow for these low pressures to basically get stuck into the central United States. The euro likes to hold on to the energy back here, as it typically does. It's kind of a bias in this model to hold on to it too long, but that's what it's doing now, and it tries to hold on to Patty's moisture a little more into Texas and kind of keeps everything kind of centered south and west of us, mainly because it is so aggressive with the chilly wave of air that drops down into the northeast, which I understand that. So, I mean, if the euro likes that idea, then this is what indeed will happen. So the euro, again, likes the idea of the cold shot of air. For us, it would be chilly. I mean, we're talking about 50s for highs, but that's not brutally cold by any stretch. It's normal, really, for this time of year, November. So, but at least that's the players in the field that likes to work with. Then as we head into the very end of the model run, it tries to then drift it, the upper low, a little more east. But again, there's no really strong jet stream pattern for these lows to work with. The tropical one and the upper low, they don't have a train track really to follow. So there's a lot of questions here on how this is going to play out. And boy, it's going to be tough because it doesn't have a definitive track. So that's going to be the challenge we're going to have with that. Let me show the GFS and its idea of the same scenario. The red, by the way, is thunderstorm fuel. You didn't see it on the euro because I didn't turn it on, but that's what that is if you're wondering what the red is. Okay, so it has the front moving in for election night, does the same thing, weakens it as it moves in, and then it takes the Patty system into the Gulf, and here comes the low that'll be settling into the plain states. And then it tries to figure out, okay, what are they going to do here? Are they going to dance? Are they going to interact? Euro is kind of just bouncing around everywhere across the Midwest. Oh, hold on one second. Got a spammer. Do not talk to Johnny. Johnny looks like he's trying to get a date. I'm not sure. Anyway, don't talk to Johnny. Johnny Trouble. Okay. So anyway, we've got that upper low that'll be drifting over us at toward the end of the period, end of next week into next weekend. Again, how do they dance? How do these two interact? The Canadian model, full on, I didn't have that shown here for you guys, but it fully connects them together as a phased system during this time period. So all the models have a different idea of how they want to handle this. And that is fair this far out. It's pretty far out in the outlook, right? So just want to give you a heads up. It's Friday. When we talk again next week, we'll just see where we are. And the data should, at that point, certainly have something a little more locked in as far as a game plan on what to do with this setup. All right, so what about the long term? The polar vortex. Oh boy, if you watch the winter outlook, I'll try to explain when we get the strong polar vortex or the Arctic oscillation. That's one way, the AO. I'll be showing that chart a lot. I'm not going to show it today, but I will be showing it at times this winter. And when it's positive, the polar vortex is locked up at the North Pole near Santa. And that keeps the cold air up there. It doesn't allow it to really become an option for us. When it's weak, that's when it has a chance to either stretch to allow cold air, or it will just move away from the North Pole altogether and sink into sometimes Canada. It sinks sometimes all the way into Europe. In 2013, I think it was 2013, when everyone first heard about it, polar vortex has always been around, and we talked about it in school, but it was not something that was in the media and shared on social media. So in 2013, when we had the polar vortex, it sunk down onto about Minnesota. That got a lot of attention. Everyone was kind of panicking at that point, thinking this is a new thing. It's not. It's always been around. But right now, the signal is that it will stay up there locked into the North Pole. So as we head all the way through at least the 11th of November, there are at least some stretches that try to happen. The Euro especially likes that idea, but not so much directly impacting us. It just allows for at least cool weather, as I mentioned, highs into the 50s with that idea. All right, so what about snow? Now, I always like to show this chart every now and then to indicate snow potential. This is the long-range Euro going all the way through mid-December. Notice as we head through mid-November, the signal is quiet. We start to get a few members that show up. These are different ensemble ideas, by the way, different models. Each one of the lines is a different model that thinks it could snow, and some have nothing listed there, so it's blank. But notice it gets a little noisier as you get into mid-December. And I really think the mid-December time period, the second week, perhaps even the third week toward Christmas, is showing up as being a little more on the cold and wintry side. That signal is showing up for the winter outlook, and it's showing up even still today. That is still there. But will it happen? We've been teased about this before, and we end up having to keep pushing it back. Sorry, folks. That's another week later. Sorry, we've got to push it back another week. You guys know how this goes. So you remember this. It's torture for us. And then eventually ends up being January. So that could happen again with this. But right now, it is showing up. So that's something for us to at least be happy about, right? I hope that's fair game. All right, let's get into the 10-day and show you that. And I'll try to get to some of your questions there. Again, you see temperatures staying generally in the 60s. Oh, wait a minute. You don't see it at all. And you're like, what are you talking about, Brian? Hold on. There it is. I promise I know how to work computers. I know it seems like I don't, but I do. There's just a lot of computers in here. Okay, here we go. 60s today, 70s, that jump. Oh, don't forget to set your clocks back, as I mentioned. And then there's election day wind and rain. And we'll just kind of keep it cool, and we'll track that upper low tropical combination, see what happens at the very end of the 10-day. Hey, Cameron, how you doing? How does the winter outlook show the second severe weather season? Typically, it can't be a severe weather setup for us for thunderstorms. Right now, there's no signal for that showing up down the road. But as we erode the drought in the plains, especially, I do think that could become a little more of a factor. So we'll be watching it. Let's see. Joe, question. I'm saying the next named storm will be Patty. Will there also be a storm named Selma this year? Will that be funny? Could be. Hey, you know, the Simpsons always show up every now and then, right? Hello, Michelle. How you doing? I'm going to go ahead and put up the Christmas lights on Sunday while the weather is nice. You know what? That is actually a fair thing. And I mentioned this on the air, I think yesterday, or even in the blog. I can't remember when. But yeah, I put mine up when we get nice days in November, even early November. I get up there on that ladder and I get everything that I need to get done, established while it's warm out, because I am a baby. And I don't want to be out there freezing my hands off when it's cold, trying to hang up lights, because it turns into Clark Griswold real fast. So I want to make sure that I get that done. You don't have to turn them on. Just get them all up. Get the hard labor out of the way while it's a warm 70-degree day. Why not? So good idea, Michelle. I cheer you on for that one. Okay. The other Michelle, though, doesn't agree. She's all about the day after Thanksgiving, which in my household, that was always when you turned everything on and decorated and everything else was the day after Thanksgiving. I think that's kind of changing. Maybe that was an 80s and 90s thing for us kids. And during that era, I think now everything's getting earlier. And I think the pandemic kind of changed that, because everyone wanted something to look forward to and something cheerful. And I'm all about that. If it mentally helps you on having decor up and feeling happy about the season, because there's so much negative things that are out there in the world, I cheer that. So go ahead, but do it whether it's the day after Thanksgiving or early November. So there you go. Okay, and one last question that I got to run here, because just after 10. Hi, Carrie. How are you doing? Thanks for watching on YouTube, by the way. Does La Nina mean a wet winter? Normally, yes, it does. And in this case, I do think we're going to have some decent high precipitation events. That's why I think the drought's going to be eroded away. but will be a constant rain or snow setup. That's unlikely. I think it's going to be very much episodic as it moves through, but there could be some decent rain events. But I think precipitation amounts, some data was showing a very, very dry scenario. I think we're going to flip this. I think we're going to get back into a little more. It's a weak La Nina. It's not a strong one. If the La Nina signal is stronger, that may enhance that potential more, Carrie. But if right now it's a weak signal on La Nina, so I'm not sure how much of an influence yet it will have. Okay, all right, one more question from Brandon. I got to talk to Brandon. What about icing events? Icing events around here happen when you get cold air, Arctic attacks. I'm talking about teens and 20s, at least the teens and 20s. Sometimes even colder, but you got to get to that kind of a cold Arctic outbreak. When you get to that, it's when you come out of it and you get a warm front, and we got 50s that come our way. That warm air that moves in, that is what is the problem, because it flies over. Cold air is heavy. It sinks down toward the ground. Warm air flies over it. So you get these warm fronts that come in, and it's rain that falls because it's warm air above our head, but it's still cold at the ground. Some cases still in the teens and the 20s. The cold air hasn't moved yet because cold air is stubborn. It doesn't want to move fast. It's very slow, sluggish, and heavy. So warm air is light, flies over it. So that allows then for icing events to happen. But you really have to have that Arctic air first, then the warm front. It's the Arctic air part that we miss. We don't get that very often. But that's when we talk about icing events. And that's possible, but I can't really see that for sure. There's no way to know that. There's no way to know that. But it's a good question, Brandon. I appreciate that, as we all are curious about how things are going to play out. Again, that video is online on wave3.com. All right, I've got to run. I appreciate all as always. Enjoy this upcoming weekend, and we'll talk about the weather setup for Election Day as we get back into work there on Monday, and we'll keep you up to the upper low scenario. Have a good one, guys, and I will see you coming up on the flip side.